Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Longhorn Confidential for September 10th, 2024. I'm Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman. Cedric Golden's here. Thomas Jones is here. Let's get started. We're recording this a couple hours before the first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So if you're a political fan and a sports fan, well, this is a perfect podcast for you. But we're not going to talk today about foreign policy. We're not going to talk today about social issues, but since the big dates debates tonight, we're going to have a debate of our own. We're going to talk about Longhorn topics, this college football season, the I guess lighthearted stuff, not the serious stuff they're going to be talking about tonight. But we don't have any rules for today. I'm not going to have a mute button or anything like that. But so we're just going to go at it. I hope Cedric and Thomas are going to behave themselves. But we're going to go, Mr. Golden. We're going to go to you first with the first question.
I can't eat bacon anymore. It's too expensive. I had to get that out. I had to get that out.
Out of here. This
$22 a pack.
Texas team following that 31-12 victory at Michigan this past weekend, they are up to number 2 in the AP poll, number 3 in the coaches poll, and Quinn Ewers, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Yep.
This upcoming weekend against UTSA, this will be his 25th career start with the Longhorns. So, Ced, we'll start with you. Quinn, how do you assess his time in office as a Texas quarterback?
You know what? He's better than I thought he would be. And because it was shaky as a freshman, he went up to Ohio State, skipped his senior year at South Lake Carroll, went to Ohio State, didn't do anything. Comes back here and he's kind of thrown into the fire, had some growing pains, but it's been really cool to see him mature, not only as a quarterback, but as a young man. And so um, I love that he's gotten him to a CFP, got him to a 12-win season. 12-win seasons are hard to come by if you're not winning conference championships. So got him a conference championship first since Colt McCoy. Made his bones here, and it's something that Sammy Ellinger didn't do, and we all believe that Sammy Ellinger had a really nice career at Texas. So he got him a conference title. He's got him number 2 in the country, and he seems to be carrying himself with a cool, calm demeanor that should make fans really excited. They used to thought of it as like a laissez-faire, non-caring, but now he's a surgeon type cool customer because he's winning. So I think if they get to the CFP and win a game, then Quinn Ewers, get to an SEC title game, Quinn Ewers could go down as a Hall of Honor possibility.
Mr. Jones, do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah. Hey, I agree. He's on the way to being on the Mount Rushmore of UT quarterbacks if we're
Ooh.
talking presidents. He really is. Let's compare him to, let's say, Bill Clinton. Look, Bill Clinton was a two-term president in the 90s. Life was good in the 90s. The economy's good. 3 years as a starting quarterback in college football these days is equivalent to getting reelected. Quinn, things are good right now. Things are easy for Texas. He's brought them back up. He's helped bring them back up to where most Texas fans think they, should have never left. Yeah, he's a comfortable incumbent. If he would have run a third time, Quinn would win again, man. Popular and electoral.
If he runs a third time at Texas, he's not going to be as popular as you
If it's
think.
as popular as the
This
last.
is the last. This is his last term of office, fam. He ain't coming back.
He could if he wanted,
Does
but
if
he's
he
not.
does, a can of worms will be opened up. Go ahead, Daniel.
I think the Mount Rushmore debate is interesting because there are 3 quarterbacks, so their numbers retired at Texas. So if he's that fourth one, is he better than Sam? Is he better than James Street, Mr. 20-0, which Quinn still needs 2 wins to tie James in the career wins list, and that'll be 10th place on the list. Quinn's
James won a natty too.
Quinn's on track to be, the number 3 all-time passer, number 3 all-time passing touchdown. He's not going to catch Sam or Colt in these categories because we assume he's not coming back for a 4th year. But
Yep.
obviously, if things go the way they're going this year and he gets that invite to New York City, he gets into the SEC championship game, gets into the playoff, maybe wins a game, hell, wins a national championship. Obviously, you shoot up the ranks with a performance like that. But right now, he's on the outside looking in, but obviously, he's become what we expected him to be. When you're that five-star recruit, one of the very few who's had that perfect rating in high school, you're a Steve Sarkisian quarterback, and everything we expect Steve to do with quarterbacks, this is what you expect. It got off to a slow start, but I think people forget that Quinn was really young when he went to Ohio State. He skipped his senior year of high school, and there's going to be naturally some growing pains there. So I think 4 years into his college career, this is what we expect. This is what we expected. This is what the recruiting gurus told us we were going to get, and this is what a Steve Sarkisian quarterback should look like. So all in all, Quinn's doing it, and we'll see where he ends up if he ends up on that Mount Rushmore at the end of this season. But let's stay with this presidential debate theme, the presidential theme. If Quinn's the president of this Texas football team, who is his ideal running mate this season? Who's been his sidekick, the guy on his side? Thomas, we'll start with you.
What Tim Waltz, right? Kamala Harris's running mate is a defensive coach, if I understand that right, back in the day in high school. He
Yeah.
strikes me as more an O-line coach kind of vibe, I'll be honest. So I'm going to stick with the O-line, and I'm not going to say the bodyguard at left tackle, Kelvin Banks. I'm going to go with the center, Jake Majors. He's had a great start to the season. He's a 4-year starter. Quinn's a 3-year starter. Quinn's hands have never been on another man's tush at Texas. That's the truth. He's enjoyed a nice relationship with Jake. He's a great bodyguard. They work well together. Jake Majors right now is Quinn's right-hand man.
Not completely true because Jake missed most of the Oklahoma game last year when he was injured. So Connor
Connor
Robertson,
Robertson has also
Cedric,
enjoyed a certain relationship.
who do you got?
I love that pick. I love that pick. And if you didn't say Jake, I would have said Jake, because
Yeah.
every time you see Quinn on Monday, Jake Majors is right there with him. And I may have talked the SID, John Bianco, into letting Quinn and Jake do a formal presser every Monday. So to keep the Peloton atmosphere around the Texas media is just a nightmare right now. So those are first world problems. But I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks. Yeah, I know he's Secret Service. He guards his backside. He is the best bodyguard in college football, along with Will Campbell of LSU. But I really like Kelvin Banks. They've been around, just like with Jake. They've been around for 3 years together, and Kelvin Banks says he takes it very personally if somebody gets a hands on his quarterback. And a good quarterback is only as good as his left tackle, because if the left tackle's not good, that quarterback's going to be on his back a lot. And so we often overlook the offensive line guys, but that's quietly, calmly been the mechanism for this Texas start. Quinn has played clean. They've run the ball well, and they just look like they haven't even played their best ball yet. But here they are, having outscored their first two opponents 83-12. That very impressive. I'll go with Banks.
I think the answer is probably Jake Majors, and I think if you need a reason why, just look at that little skirmish at the Michigan game. I mean, Jake was leading the charge on that. They weren't letting anything happen to their quarterback. But I'll pick a defensive guy just for argument's sake. I think the leaders of that defense are either Jahdae Barron or Michael Taft, for different reasons. I think Jahdae's obviously got the accolades and he's got the experience and all he's accomplished over the past couple of years. But I think this defense really respects Michael Taft and just kind of his story and what he has worked his way up from being a walk-on to being a starting safety. That seems to be universally loved in that locker room and respected. And Michael Taft can talk. So I'd have no problem putting him up there to give a campaign speech. That young man is going to be a politician or a preacher or something whenever he gets done gets down in Texas, because he can definitely talk. So I'll go with Michael for my pick. His team, despite being 2-0, despite opening the season with that rout to Colorado State and a very impressive win at Michigan, they're not perfect. No candidate is perfect. So if we're nitpicking here, what's wrong with this Texas team? If we're slamming them on our stump speech and want to say something negative about this team, what are we pointing at? TJ, we'll start with you.
They're going to have to get these running backs going a little bit more. The two longest runs this season have been a 55-yarder by Ryan Wingo, 25-yarder by Isaiah Bond. Those are both receivers. The longest run from a running back's been 22 yards from the freshman Jared Gibson. So Jaden Blue has big-time speed. We all know that. At some point, he's going to have to bust one. Gibson's going to have to bust one. You know, Trey Wisner's going to have to bust one. Um, let's get a little more production from the running game. I think Sarkisian and his staff kind of want to see a few more explosive plays from that backfield.
Said.
One sack through 2 games. I know their teams aren't throwing it as much on them because I guess they don't think they can throw it. They think they want to test Texas up the gut, and Texas has been up to the challenge. Shout out to Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton and company. But sooner or later, they're going to have to impose their will on these tackles and on these blockers. You have a great crew of pass rushers on paper, guys. Trey Moore comes over from UTSA, still waiting on his first sack. Ethan Burke had 5.5 last year, still waiting on his first. Barron Sorrell, still waiting on his first. And I think Colin Simmons came through, got a sack at the big house, and that's the only sack of the year, I believe. And so if I told you they had one sack through the first 2 games, I think you probably would have been surprised. Sooner or later, they're going to have to they're going to run into a team that can really chunk it on them, and that's going to put a lot more pressure on these cornerbacks and these safeties than need be if you had a pass rush that's getting there. They've had some pressures, but those pressures are going to have to turn into sacks if they want to go to those special places that we think they're capable of going.
I wrote about this in today's newspaper, and Steve talked at length about it yesterday in his press conference. But this team needs a better killer instinct. Obviously, last season that was a huge problem in that Oklahoma lost, where Oklahoma came down and scored those winning points, and the game was done in Michigan. That game was not in question, but Michigan got some yards. Michigan got a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Michigan, made the score seem a lot closer than the game actually was because of how they played in the fourth quarter and how Texas, had one first down, was shut out in the fourth quarter. So, Texas needs to do a better job of just, putting the proverbial foot on someone's throat and just ending it and not giving a team that can score possibly a chance to at least keep that door open if they do have a lead going into the fourth quarter. So I know that's being preached over at Texas's practices and in meetings and stuff like that. And the players talk a lot about it. And we're just going to need to see that going forward. Probably not going to happen this upcoming weekend. It's UTSA because that should be a blowout, and ULM the weekend after that. But once SEC play does begin, and they're facing teams that could score and score in a hurry, they're going to need to do a better job just slamming the door and making sure these games are done before the final couple minutes of the fourth quarter. So I'd like to see more of a killer instinct with this Longhorns team. But final question, if you're watching the debate tonight, you're probably going to hear something from one of these candidates that if you rewind a couple days, weeks, months, they weren't saying. They're probably saying the opposite. It's flip-flop season. People just want to hear whatever sounds great. So we had our preseason predictions about a month ago. Would either of you all like to flip-flop on any of your predictions from ahead of the season? Seth, we'll start with you.
I started out at 10-2 earlier in the summer, and then on my last On Second Thought podcast before the season, I went down each game, and I arrived at 11-1, and that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to stick with 11-1. I think they play in the SEC title game against Georgia. I think they're very capable. They're very capable if they stay healthy of winning the whole damn thing. They are, because they have so many weapons, and they have arguably the best play caller in America in Steve Sarkisian. I mean, he has been in his bag these first 2 games. A good mix of running, passing, misdirection plays. The offensive line looks like a Joe Moore type award-winning offensive line. And so things are cooking on the 40 acres right now. They're cooking. And so I think they look the part of an 11-1 team, a team that's, I don't think there's another team besides Georgia in the SEC that's better than Texas. And maybe Alabama is. I saw LSU, not impressed. Missouri's played well, but I think Texas and Georgia are the class of this conference. And I have no reason to go back on my 11-1. They look like an 11-1 team.
TJ, would you like to flip-flop on anything?
I was also 11-1. You can go back and look, and I'm staying with that. The way they handle their business in Michigan, the fast start, handling the crowd, kind of solidified that status for me. And remember, Seth talked about the SEC schedule. They play Georgia, but that's it. They don't play the three other teams that have really impressed me are Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri. They don't play any of those guys in the regular season. Maybe they see him in the SEC title game. Maybe they see him in the college football playoff. But for the regular season, I'm sticking with 11-1, and I'm pretty confident in that. Especially if y'all saw how OU struggled against U of H this weekend. I don't think Texas will have any problems in the Cotton Bowl.
They will,
Yeah,
but they'll still play.
they'll have problems. I
We'll
don't
see.
think it's going to be a
There's
blowout.
always problems in the Cotton Bowl. Well, not 2 years ago. I don't
That's
know.
right.
Yeah, not 2 years ago, but OU will show up in Dallas. But I think Texas will win that game.
That kind of segues into my prediction. I went 10-2 before the season, and the reason I went 10-2 was I thought that they'd lose one of the two rivalry games, not including Arkansas. I think that's a dub. But I'm going to stick with 10-2, but I don't think they're losing to either A&M or Oklahoma. Neither of those teams has been impressive start the season. OU should be embarrassed that they only beat Houston by 4 points and only scored 16 points. That
At
was
home.
that Houston team is awful. And they have a good coach in there, and they're building that stuff up, and they could be a problem down the road. But right now, that is not a team you should be beating by 4 points if you want to be considered a serious football team. And A&M, obviously, with the way their season opening against Notre Dame, which they didn't win and lost at home to NIU. I'm just not impressed by the Aggies yet either. So I don't think they lose either of those rivalry games. I think they very well could stub their toes against Kentucky or one of these other SEC teams. I mean, it still is the SEC, and that's going to be 7-8 weeks of really tough competition. So I mean, I don't think we can expect Texas's cakewalk through that game, and we'll see what happens in the Georgia game. But I'm gonna stick with 10-2, but I just don't think that loss is coming against either the Sooners or the Aggies. But I feel confident right now with my Quinn going to New York City prediction. That seems the way he's playing. That seems like that is definitely going to happen. But that's it. That's our debate. I hope we swayed some voters out there. I don't know what we're actually going for here, but that's going to do it for there. Next stop for the on the campaign trail for the Longhorns will be this Saturday. UTSA is coming to town, 6 p.m. That's an ESPN game, so heading out there will be a lot cooler than 2 weeks ago when everyone was out there in the middle of the afternoon for that Colorado State game. But statesman.com, we'll be covering that game. Obviously, we have lots of stuff throughout this week. Stories by me, said Thomas, David Eckert, who's now in town, officially moved in from Mississippi. Caleb Young's doing his thing too. But yeah, and the On Second Thought podcast drops on Thursday morning. Said you got the band back together last week. We had lots of teams, lots of people from that '05 Rose Bowl team. Salvin to talk about the Michigan game. What's happening this week? What do you got in store for us?
I've got a couple of guests lined up, but I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the confirmation. But it's UTSA week, and you know what, guys? I'll be honest. I was going to try to get Jeff Traylor on, and he would have done it. But Jeff Traylor's he's got more important issues. They got absolutely cooked by Texas State, so I don't want to take 15 minutes away from Jeff Traylor when he's got to get ready for the Texas Longhorns. So I'll probably have a notable alumni. You guys will know the name. So by the time it drops on Thursday, you'll know who we're talking about.
Yeah, so go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, and you can wake up on Thursday morning. It'll be right in your phone. And we appreciate you listening to this podcast on those same platforms or watching us on YouTube or statesman.com. But that's gonna do it for us. We appreciate y'all. See y'all down the road. Have fun on Saturday, and deuces.